You might be furious at NASA for refusing to release those high-rise images of 3I Atlas. You might be suspicious about why Europa Clipper stayed silent after flying through the ion tail. You might even think the whole government shutdown excuse for hiding data is the worst thing they've done. But you know what? NASA's strange behavior with 3I Atlas started way before any of that. Months before HiRISE even captured those close-up photos, back when this thing was still just a dot in telescope images. Because in July 2025, the moment Avi Loeb published a plan to actually reach 3I Atlas and answer every question we have about it, NASA did something I've never seen them do in 2 decades of covering space missions. They pretended it didn't exist. And when you understand what they killed, when you see the timeline of who was pushing for this and who went silent, when you realize what we lost because of a decision NASA won't even acknowledge they made, you'll understand that hiding photos is nothing compared to what they actually did. Let me show you what they took from us. In late July 2025, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb published a peer-reviewed paper with a proposal that should have electrified NASA. His team had run the calculations. The Juno spacecraft, currently orbiting Jupiter, could intercept 3I Atlas during its closest approach to Jupiter in March 2026. Here's what makes this so damning. The maneuver required was tiny. We're talking about 2.675 kilometers per second of thrust. That would use only 110 kilograms of propellant, just 5.4% of Juno's original fuel supply. The spacecraft launched in 2011 with over 2,000 kilograms of fuel. Even after nearly 14 years in space, it had more than enough. The timing was perfect. Juno would need to execute what's called an Oberth maneuver on September 9th, dropping closer to Jupiter to gain speed, then firing its engines at the optimal moment. 8 days before NASA had already planned to crash Juno into Jupiter's atmosphere anyway. Instead of dying for nothing, Juno could have intercepted 3I Atlas on March 14, 2026. Not from some distant Earth telescope, not from grainy photos taken by Mars orbiters behind closed government doors. A direct flyby, potentially as close as 27 million kilometers. Look at what Juno carries, a near-infrared spectrometer that could read the chemical signature of 3I Atlas. A magnetometer that could detect whether it's producing any kind of electromagnetic field that natural comets don't produce. A microwave radiometer that could measure thermal emissions, crucial for understanding if there's an internal power source. Particle detectors that could analyze exactly what's being ejected and at what velocities. A UV spectrograph and visible light camera for high-resolution imaging. This wasn't amateur hour. This was a real mission proposal with real math published in a real scientific journal. Loeb's team had modeled every orbital parameter, accounted for 3I Atlas's non-gravitational acceleration, calculated the fuel requirements down to the kilogram. One scientist who reviewed the paper told colleagues it was devastatingly feasible. Those are the words that got back to me. Devastatingly feasible. So what happened? On July 31, 2025, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna did something extraordinary. She sent an official letter to NASA's acting administrator, Sean Duffy, explicitly requesting that NASA study the propellant levels remaining on Juno and seriously consider repurposing the mission to study 3I Atlas. This wasn't a casual suggestion. This was a sitting member of Congress on official letterhead citing Loeb's published research, formally requesting action. Luna's letter stated that the data from such a mission would be of great importance to advancing our understanding of interstellar visitors. NASA's response? Nothing. No press conference, no official statement, no technical briefing explaining why it couldn't be done. Not even a polite letter back to Luna saying we reviewed it and here's why it won't work. Complete institutional silence. I filed Freedom of Information Act requests trying to find internal NASA discussions about the Juno proposal. I wanted to see the emails, the technical assessments, the fuel calculations, anything showing that someone at NASA actually evaluated this. The requests are still pending, but here's what's interesting. Other FOIA requests I filed with NASA about far more mundane topics got responses within weeks. This one, months of silence. Multiple aerospace engineers I spoke with, and I'm keeping them anonymous because they fear career retaliation, told me the Juno redirection was absolutely doable. One engineer who worked on the original Juno mission said, "If there was a legitimate technical reason we couldn't do this, someone at NASA would be shouting it from the rooftops to shut down the speculation. The silence means something else." What does it mean? August rolled by. Congressional recess. Maybe that explains it. September approached. Still nothing from NASA. The online astronomy community was buzzing about September 9th. Amateur astronomers in forums were counting down the days, posting, "Is NASA really going to let this pass?" September 9th arrived. No announcement, no maneuver, no explanation. The deadline passed. By the time NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory posted a routine status update on Juno 2 weeks later, the opportunity was gone forever. You can't undo orbital mechanics. You missed the window. It's over. If Juno had intercepted 3I Atlas in March 2026, we would have resolved the single biggest question in astronomy right now. Loeb's cataloged 10 statistical anomalies about 3I Atlas that, when you multiply the probabilities together, give you odds of less than 1 in 10 quadrillion that this object is behaving naturally. Juno's instruments could have tested every one of those anomalies directly. Is that non-gravitational acceleration coming from natural outgassing or from something else? Juno's particle detectors would measure the exact velocity and composition of anything being ejected. Natural comet outgassing produces gas speeds of about 0.3 to 0.5 kilometers per second. Chemical rockets, 3 to 5 kilometers per second. Ion thrusters, 10 to 50 kilometers per second. One flyby would tell us everything. Is that bizarre nickel to iron ratio actually indicating industrial alloys, or is it some exotic natural composition we've never seen? Juno's spectrometer would give us the answer in a single observation pass. Does 3I Atlas have any kind of internal magnetic field that natural space rocks shouldn't have? Juno's magnetometer is sensitive enough to detect it. Here's what really haunts me. Loeb's calculations showed 3I Atlas would be losing mass at a rate of 50 billion tons per month based on its observed acceleration. For a natural comet, that means a massive debris cloud that would be impossible to miss. But the November images showed no such cloud. So, either the mass loss estimates are catastrophically wrong, which would overturn our understanding of orbital mechanics, or something else is producing that acceleration with far less mass ejection, like a propulsion system. Juno could have flown right through the area where that debris cloud should be, measured the particle density, and settled this forever. Instead, we're stuck with ground telescopes trying to squint through Earth's atmosphere, watching 3I Atlas get dimmer as it speeds away, arguing about fuzzy images and ambiguous spectra. And here's the cruelest part. In March 2026, 3I Atlas will pass just 53 million kilometers from Jupiter. Juno will be right there, orbiting Jupiter like it's been doing for years. The two objects will be in the same neighborhood at the same time. But Juno will just sit there, useless because NASA refused to move it 3 months ago when they had the chance. The current plan, if you can even call it a plan, is for Juno to maybe, possibly, try to detect low-frequency radio signals from 3I Atlas using its dipole antenna. That's it. No images, no spectra, no particle analysis. Just, did we hear a beep?
So why did NASA kill this mission? The official answer is, there is no official answer because NASA has never officially acknowledged the proposal existed, despite it being published in a peer-reviewed journal and requested by a member of Congress. But let me walk you through what we know. NASA has spent the last 4 months in what I can only describe as institutional paralysis over 3I Atlas. They sat on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-rise images for over a month, blaming a government shutdown that didn't actually prevent ESA or China from releasing their Mars orbiter data during the exact same time period. When Europa Clipper had a chance to fly through 3I Atlas's ion tail between October 30th and November 6th, a chance to directly sample material from another star system for the first time in human history, the spacecraft remained in cruise mode. NASA has never confirmed whether they even activated the plasma instruments during that window. The Hubble Space Telescope was supposed to perform ultraviolet spectroscopy on 3I Atlas in November to determine its sulfur-to-oxygen ratio. That data hasn't been released. The James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled to observe 3I Atlas again in December. We'll see if they actually publish those results or if they get delayed like everything else. There's a pattern here, and it's not subtle. Every time there's an opportunity to get definitive data about 3I Atlas, data that could actually resolve whether this thing is natural or not, NASA either doesn't take the shot or takes the shot and then won't show us what they found. And the Juno decision is the most damning example yet because it required action. It required someone at NASA to say, yes, redirect the spacecraft. And when that moment came, they said nothing. They just let the deadline pass. I've covered space missions for years. I've seen NASA pull off incredible improvisation, landing Curiosity with a sky crane, saving Kepler after its reaction wheels failed, stretching Opportunity's 90-day mission into 15 years. When NASA wants to make something happen, they find a way. They didn't want this to happen. December 19th, 2025, 3I Atlas will make its closest approach to Earth, 168 million miles away. That's the last time we'll get good observations before it disappears back into interstellar space forever. March 16th, 2026, it passes Jupiter. Juno will be there, sitting uselessly in orbit, having been crashed into Jupiter or left to die 3 months after they could have sent it on the most important flyby mission in human history. And we'll be left with the same questions we have now. Except now, we'll know something else for certain. NASA had the chance to get answers. They had the spacecraft, they had the fuel, they had the math, they had a Congresswoman literally begging them to do it. And they chose to let it slip away, without a word. You tell me what that means.